Welcome to Stories in Time from Home. That's what we're having to do this day, is having things talked about at home because of this darn virus that's going around. But it's not so bad once you get used to it. Today, I'm really excited because we have a guest that I think is going to be a lot of fun for you and a lot of fun for me to hear what he has to say. Jack Rasmussen is director and curator of the museum at American University. And I've known him a while. And so I've got some questions, Jack. Welcome, Jack Rasmussen.
Thank you, Ellouise. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. One of the things was that I was thinking about that. You are identifying 15 as a big item on many of your pieces of paper or your emails that you're sending out. And you told me the other day, it's 15 years since you opened this museum.
That's correct.
But I had seen you at American University a long time before then.
About 47 years, if you want to be exact.
Is it really? That is amazing, isn't it? And there's just a whole bunch of things in there that create a history from American University and what. What was I thinking about? I wanted to ask you about. Well, the first thing I want to ask you is I'm not really familiar with what you do when you're at work at American University. How about telling me what your job is as a director and a curator? How are you doing that?
Well, it used to be a little different. I used to be in the museum, actually. Now I'm in my basement. But hopefully, I get to go in 2 days a week now, and hopefully over the course of the next 6 months, we'll be back in full operation. But essentially, I'm doing the same things. I'm working on exhibitions, although these days I'm canceling them rather than scheduling them. Or postponing them, which is not at all as fun as you can imagine. And I'm also sort of, administering the museum. I've got a great staff, and we try to keep everybody sort of moving in the right direction. And then I'm also fundraising to try to keep this ship afloat and allow us to do the kinds of more ambitious shows that we're able to do because we can fundraise.
That's pretty good, but that's really hard to get about 6 jobs under one thing. You've got a lot of things going on, don't you? A lot of work to be done.
Well, yeah. I mean, but, I've been doing this for a long time. I mean, in 1974, I was the gallery assistant at the Watkins Gallery, which is the predecessor of the American University Museum. So that's when we were there,
Who were you assistant to?
Luciano Pinay.
Oh, how fun. How fun. Yeah, you've told me that before. I know him because he got me out of that class. I survived with my master's degree because of him. Now, what did he really do that he was there in charge and then he brought you in and he must have taught you a lot?
Well, he did teach me a lot. I made some really incredibly stupid mistakes. I remember my favorite story is, it was a very small gallery. The present museum is 40 times the size of the old gallery in the Watkins Gallery.
That's terrific, yeah.
Right. And we had, occasionally we'd put up extra walls and they'd be made of pegboard, or masonite. And I remember, there were these masonite walls, and I was trying to hang a photography show by putting a photograph up and putting a pane of glass over it, and then pounding in nails to, hold it to the wall. But with masonite, you pound it and it bounces, so everything's kind of going like this. And, I learned everything the hard way. Basically, it's really the best, way to learn provided you survive.
Well, he was so funny. As a teacher, as a friend later on. And
he's still funny.
Yeah, I know. He is a wonderful person. One of the things that always impressed me, and I'd like to hear what you think about this, he could look at a piece of artwork and see something that it never occurred to me to notice when I was looking at a picture.
Oh, I think the whole, American University faculty was awfully good.
Yeah,
Yeah. They were teachers first. They really, and we were pretty lucky to have them.
I think so. I think so. What was your favorite show, either to work with there and then talk to us about the shows that you had thought you were going to have and you're delighting?
Well, I can tell you the first show I ever curated was I was sent to Baltimore to the studio of Grace, was a very famous New York
Oh,
artist
yeah,
who
yeah.
moved to Baltimore, and then evidently she agreed to do a show at AU. So I was sent there to choose the show, and this is a big time New York artist, and as it turned out, she told me what the show was going to be. I mean, she pretty much was in charge of everything, and I would just say yes, Mrs. Hartigan.
Well, that was a big job for you to do
Yeah.
that.
And doing what artists want has really been a real secret of my success, because then they don't complain as much,
They just let you go ahead. I've seen that.
Mhm.
that. I liked her work. How was your feeling to it? Had you known it before you got into her studio? Or did it open you up to something else?
We just had a show at the American University Museum curated by Norma Browdy, one of AU's great feminist art history faculty. And it was a show of Helene, Hertzberg, and Grace Hartigan.
I saw that show.
Yeah, it was really a pretty wonderful show.
Yes. I was really happy that you had put that together, that Norma was there, that you had put that together, because would you agree with me when I say there was a time when there just weren't enough evidence of women being shown in class in shows very often?
Well, I took anthropology classes after I got my MFA, and I actually did a paper in an archaeology class, and it was a stratigraphic analysis of the collection of the National Portrait Gallery. And I looked at it in terms of gender and race. And at the time, this was about 30 years ago, there were like no women artists represented in the collection, and very few women portrayed, in the collection. So yeah, I would say come a long way, baby. I mean, this is, it was amazingly bad, but I think people are really working hard to catch up now.
I think they're trying to, I didn't know that would come up. This was a blurt or question that came out that's steering us in a different direction. But now it's more understandable about how women artists were irked. That was difficult sometimes.
Oh yeah. No, it's certainly understandable. And I mean, you were involved in a lot of those early, the productive result of your being irked, the kinds of organizations they helped start and the exhibitions you were able to put on. So
we had great people, great women actually acting out there, but they were helped. I mean, they were helped by the artists that were open to it. But what I'm saying is that, I'm sure that people were tired of hearing us complain, or raise a flag about it. But it had to be done. The flags had to go up and it had to be done. But I can see, that you really noticed it. It was wonderful that you went for that class. Made you by far a better master of the art.
Oh, don't say master.
Oh, pardon me. Pardon me. I wanted to ask
Don't
something.
say mistress either, I guess.
No, just be careful. Be careful. So that's 47 years that you've been there?
Well, I've sort of come and gone over the years.
Yeah, I know that, but you've had a really good relationship with American University. They appreciated your being there and kept bringing you back. What was your best or your most pleasing, your silver moment of the thing you were working with there? Because didn't you come to be a painter?
What was my silver moment when I was working as a student or at American?
Anything. What do you remember when you open up and you think about American University, that moment that you're really glad you were there?
Well, my very first memory is I had applied to George Washington University and American University's graduate programs in painting. And I went to George Washington University and I walked into the office and said who I was. And they said, well, who are you? And we can't find anything here. And I don't know, maybe you can come back, we'll try to figure out, what happened. So I said, okay. So then I went over to American University. I walked in the door and Glenna Haney was there behind the door. And she said, you must be John Rasmussen. So it was an entirely different feel. And I think that sort of started my relationship there off on a good foot.
Well, I could see that would have been wonderful. And she could do that so well, but you were that whole thing. That's a wonderful thing to say about your alumni place, et cetera. But thinking ahead to your own work or what you were doing, what was a silver lining? It could be yesterday, not long ago, but whichever one would you remember first?
Well, I'm, you're an artist. You know that the thing you're working on now is the best. And I work all the time. I've been doing mostly collages with some paint thrown in over the last many years. And I've learned a few things, working in galleries and things. And one of the things I learned is, storage for an artist is a big problem. So
oh yeah,
I've been working on paper, and I have like the last 25 years of work under my bed.
That's wonderful. You mean stamps? That's wonderful. Wonderful. I'm envious.
Well, there are enough problems being an artist, let alone, the problem every artist has of storage and what in the world am I going to do with all this stuff? And do I have to rent a storage unit so I can move?
Should we keep it, that you brought up something that's really a big question for many artists, particularly if you haven't had great shows and you haven't sold off most of it, et cetera. I went to the front door maybe 20 years ago, and there was a woman in a car out there that was loaded with canvases, and she wanted me to either take them or tell her where to put them. And I had no answers. I'm not a director at a museum or at a gallery. And I thought, she was really upset, that this was something, and she had no clue as to what to do. What do you think about that?
Well, I have that experience all the time. That's just the way it is. Artists produce work all their lives, and then how do you ensure that it doesn't disappear or fade away or be destroyed, or it's just a fact of life for artists. And I don't have the answer. Every artist sort of has to figure out, are you going to have a big bonfire in your backyard?
It's a thought.
or there's organizations like the Art Connection in Maryland that takes work and puts it on the walls of nonprofits, and it's a great place to put work. It's something you have to figure out. You should not wait until you can't help yourself. You should figure out how to not leave your heirs with a big problem.
Yeah, as my children would say to me, get rid of it now. What are we going to do with that? Get rid of it now. I think, though, that it's a laugh right now for that. And you told me that people come to you about that, and it's a good thing they can talk to you. But there's no direction or directive as to how you can proceed. What are you looking for at 25? You ought to start thinking about that early,
Mm-hmm.
And so there's not really, that teaching is not out there yet. So, or at least I've never encountered it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jack. Really, we're going to take a brief break here, and we'll be back soon. Don't anybody go away, because we have some more stories to hear from Jack today, and let us into a place where we don't ordinarily see what's happening. Thank you. We'll talk to you shortly.
Our fight against coronavirus isn't over. Let's wear face masks in public, stay 6 feet or more from others, follow state and local guidelines, and wash our hands frequently. Let's move forward together. Learn more at coronavirus.gov.
See, it wasn't that long. We're right back where we were before with more things to talk about from you about in the arts, the rich things that they hand to people. You must not have many people coming to the museum these days.
Actually, members of the public are not allowed on campus. It's completely sealed up. There are no students there either. No, it's shut down. And as a matter of fact, actually, Dr. Fauci was at the university yesterday, I suspect virtually, giving a talk, about the course of the pandemic, because he's a good friend of our president, Sylvia Burwell, and sort of bringing everybody up to date into what's going on. So we're pretty well acquainted with reality, and that reality says that we may not be open, until next April. Fortunately, we've got lots of content that we can get out through other means. And we're very busy, trying to do that. We don't want to disappear.
No, I can understand that feeling very well. The looking around to find things. I've talked to a lot of people, that I see on your website that you do have a lot of things on there. And how do people get to that?
Put in American University Museum, and it'll probably get you to our web page. And in there is a section called Museum at Home. And that's where you can find all the programming we've been doing. We have really every show that we would have been up physically is there online now.
Did you choose somebody that would have been with you? Did my understanding you correctly on that? You had planned a show. It wasn't going to happen. Were you talking to them or showing some of their work? Not that it matters.
Well, sometimes, yes. Yeah. Usually we'll have a gallery talk, with sort of a virtual gallery talk with the virtual show, because we have the images, we have all the text we've created. We can have conversations with the artists, just as we would. Actually, the shows that we're supposed to be up right now, a series of shows called Contested Space, which were specifically designed to address issues in the upcoming presidential election. So, it's too bad that you can't come, but we have shows, we have exhibitions on the environment, on the weaponization of immigration, and questions of identity, and you can see those online.
All right, and I think that one of the things I appreciate seeing, not at AU, but it's a companion, is that out on the internet, there are a lot coming from Paris, or they're coming from Europe, and people who are feeling so heartbroken because they can't travel. You can travel through AU, can't you? By looking at those pieces and having a sort of an understanding of where the artwork came from.
Yeah, of course, it's not quite the same thing. I mean, I'm in front of a painting by Helene Hertzberg, which, by the way, was done in 1973, the same year that we met.
Yeah.
And so, but you have no idea what this painting actually looks like. Virtually, it's just this little kind of image here, but it's actually a really big painting, really big, with beautiful texture and sort of diaphanous, veiled areas of color that you just don't get. So you don't get that, but being online is awfully interesting in that you can communicate a lot of information, sort of contextual information, so that when you do see the work, you get a lot more information on where it comes from what people think it's about, and how it might be relevant to your life. So it's a different way of working, and I don't think we'll ever go back to. I think that we'll take advantage of this new technology. I mean, hopefully we'll be back in the museum and actually see the real thing. But the technology is also an incredible tool for communicating information.
Well, I think everything I hear in the news, about when the schools are going to open, when they're not going to be open, all this thing that's happened because of the virus, that's the beginning of the change. That's just my funny little thought about it, and that it's going to impact on what you're talking about, that it's going to impact all over. And so I think we're really lucky to have been there when it was real,
Hopefully it'll be real again.
Yes, but what I was saying is that tell us about how that studio smelled when you went into it with the oils painting and the turpentine and everything. I think that we're going to have to learn how to re-educate people about what's there in the art. It's not just a piece of paper that you can tear up.
Well, it's such a strange thing to have something before you that doesn't move. It's actually still, and you can actually contemplate it, and concentrate and get deeper into it instead of being entertained by colors flying around and jumping up and down. It's a very different thing, but I think there's room for both. I don't think that artists are going to be working digitally for sure. That's the future too. But I don't think we'll ever lose our taste for just things that don't move.
Oh, I think you're right about that. But what I was saying was I think people are going to have to be brought to look for it. That you can't just assume that it's going to that it's going to be like it was.
Yeah, that's our job in museums and galleries. It's to try to get people in and then, get them to slow down and actually, look and see and not, rush from one thing to another, which is their daily lives, that it can be a special place to really for, contemplation and deeper thinking, experiencing.
Well, I certainly have been over to the museum, and before this all closed down, different shows, and it's wonderful how the shows that you put up over there capture people and keep them sitting, keep them standing there looking. That must be a great feeling to you.
Well, we try.
I think you succeed.
We do try.
Yeah, that you succeed, but that must be, as a curator, how do you feel about that? That must be a terrific feeling.
Well, really my job is just sort of to get out of the way and let people, experience art. And it's what the artist has to contribute to their lives. It's important. Yeah. And so my job is just to be kind of almost I wouldn't say neutral, because obviously I'm making decisions and choices based on whatever personal proclivities and experiences I've had in my life. But I do try to be as transparent as possible and just let the artist speak and not kind of muddle it up.
But if they don't have a place like your museum, the museum at AU, those artists can't give away or talk about, or anybody like yourself talk about what they've done. That's not available to most people if there's not a place. So you're really supplying something pretty big.
Well, you've created places too. This is an ongoing thing. Galleries are disappearing all the time, just like other small businesses. This is a terrible time, but they've got to be replaced. We've got to come back and provide those opportunities to experience art. Can't just slide away.
You told me the other day you're on the Arts Council for Maryland, that we're pretty lucky with that council in the state of Maryland. Tell people about that. They might need to know.
Well, the Maryland State Arts Council is, it's actually number 2 in this nation in terms of states per capita spending on the arts. It's an amazing thing. We're very, very lucky to be here, you know, and we've been also very responsive to the plight of artists during this pandemic. We've been able to secure additional funding from the federal government and other sources to provide emergency relief for individual artists and all the organizations that can no longer, you know, charge admission, you know, to pay the salaries of their staff, to, you know, pay the artists for their work. So, you know, it's very, very challenging, but I think in Maryland, we're very, very fortunate.
I don't think people know a lot about that. I've not read about much of it in the paper and that sort of thing, so that there is a gateway that knows about it, but I don't think the public appreciates what's happening back there to give them back this art.
Yeah, well, that's too bad, because it's their taxes that make it possible.
That's what we're doing. So there are people who are willing to put it out. Before we come near the end of this, I've really enjoyed talking to you so much, but why did you decide to be an artist?
I mean, the first thing I wanted to be was a baseball player.
Oh, okay.
And I wasn't very good. And then I wanted to be the president. And then I thought, boy, that's not a really good idea either. And I wanted to be a musician. And I still, you know, sing. I play in a band. You know, I'm able to keep that going. But I've always made things, and so it was just a continuation of the things that, you know, the secret to happiness is really to do, what you like to do and what you're best at. And if you can get those two things together, you know, you got a life, you know.
So a very good life, a very good life. That's a good, thank you for that. Is there anything that comes to your mind that you would like to put out here?
You know, here I am living in Montgomery County, actually the community of Bannockburn. And within about a half a mile of me are two great artists, right in the neighborhood. Joe Shannon, an amazing, very sort of difficult and controversial figure. His art is very challenging. The very opposite of the Washington Color School that people revere so much because it's so uncontroversial, and the perfect corporate art. You don't have to worry about what it means because it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Whereas Joe is, right in your face, great artist. And then Lisa Brockman is just down the street, a wonderful figurative artist, there's a whole community around here of really terrific people. And I think the more their community knows about them, the better everybody will be.
I think you're right about that. I'm really glad that you brought that up. I don't know that we are particularly aware of a lot. I think that...
they're among us.
Yes, they're out there among us for sure. I appreciate you coming today, just to have this conversation. I think it's gone into many different ways. But you care about this stuff, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So do you. I take it.
Yeah.
And this is not the first time I've been on this show. I've been on twice with Lila Snow. And,
yes, you did a good job with that.
She was a wonderful, wonderful person, host, artist, character, and she's missed. But you're doing a great job. So,
thank you. Well, y'all, I love
carrying on.
Yeah, carrying on. I love the ending show that you did with Lila. When she went over to the museum. And you had that opportunity. She was determined, that when you had out there the shows of people from the Washington Arts Center, which was a great thing for everybody that had been part of it. And Lila was so determined, and y'all went over there, and it was great. It's a history moment, I think. You must have felt that.
Well, it's something that museums can do.
Yeah.
Work with history as well as the present. and it's hopefully provide something of a big picture of what's going on in the world and went on.
Yeah. Well, I just got the chat that we're out of time, and I want to thank you very much for coming, Jack. I loved it.
Thank you so much, Ellouise.
Take care. And thank you to everybody else. We'll be back probably with a guest in a couple of weeks, and then I'll tell you some stories next week. So stop by on MMC TV and catch these things. Thank you very much.